It's time for us to have a conversation this morning with Temidayo, Oloyede, and Samuel Olatunde. It's such a pleasure to have you in the studio with us this morning. So I'm very interested in this because this is something that has to do with real estate. And a lot of people have questions, especially regarding the controversy last December, during Dirty December and all regarding shortlets and stuff. So I'm very curious, guys. Is the shortlets market dying? Is it?
Okay. I think I will answer quickly by saying, first off, a lot of people have the opinion about shortlets and December, and there's usually a boom in December. But what we saw last December was there was a lot of negative sentiments. So sentiments coming from the fact that shortlets have now become very overpriced. You know, people are charging, operators are charging too much premium for shortlets. And we've also seen conversations around now people, looking for alternatives, now going back to traditional hotels. But one thing, a missed controversy that I think that we need to also pay attention to is the data. So what does the data say, right? Are people actually still booking the shortlets? And the truth is, compared to 2024, 2025, performed better. In terms of revenue for the entire industry, right, for the shortlets.
It was hundreds of billions.
Yeah, it was about 280 billion,
yeah.
Right. But of course, it fell short of projection. And in 2024, the industry did about 260 billion, and in 2025, we were projecting 300 billion, but we fell short of that projection by 20 billion. But of course, yes, the shortlet market fell short of the projection, but it is not dying. So I would personally say the market is normalizing, and there's a lot of restructuring going on in that aspect of the real estate industry.
When you say restructuring, what do you mean?
So what I mean is, things are now more being balanced, right? As opposed to people, going for trends or for the boom in the market, people are now more, conscious of what they're paying for. They are now asking questions, right? Is the shortlets functional? Am I getting value for money? So, and then, when the economy is, tighter, when you are constrained as to, what you can pay for, then you start to want to spend carefully. So that's what we see happening.
So let me ask you, Temidayo, regarding the rising costs, let's be realistic. Businesses are facing a crisis right now because when your costs goes up, who bears the brunt? The customer. And what happens in some cases, some people decide, oh, I don't need this service, or some people feel, okay, is there a way to get a discount, which might not be favorable to you? Would you say it has affected your business, or how are you managing to navigate it?
Okay, so basically, when you look at general cost of doing business in Nigeria, across all boards, not even real estate generally, it has gone up very high, right? But the point is, specifically when you look at the general cost elements for running a shortlet property, electricity is the major cost, right? And with what we have seen with the war that is currently going on and all of those things, right, it has generally affected and taken the cost very high, right? And the point is, if you really want to be in business and you want to have a sustainable business, you have to pass on the cost to somebody, which most likely is the consumers, right? So what we are going to be seeing, likely, at least for the later part of this year, is we are going to be seeing very high costs in terms of shortlet prices, and it will also go across different hospitality chains, across also the hotels and all of those things generally. But it has generally affected the cost of doing business in shortlets, specifically in the hospitality sector, and we'll continue to see the cost of prices of things go up generally.
So now, when you talk about prices going up generally, how do you balance it? Because it can be very tricky when it comes to pricing. People already say shortlets are, in quotes, expensive. And then now with the rising costs, of course, how are you going to balance it? Okay,
so it's really a set of rights. At some point, you have to look at some services and say, do I want to take this out or do I want to give this in, right? Because you really can't be all good across board, right? Some point you have to say, oh, do you want to ration power? Do you want to do this? You want to do that? Or you want to reduce the cost of marketing, or you want to take something up to be able to make up for it. Because like I've said, if you increase the price so high that it becomes unbearable for the customers, they will go for other alternatives, right? So at the end of the day, really, because what we have seen also is that based on data, we have seen that, like I said, the market did not fall short generally, right? The revenue did not decline, right? The revenue still went up. right? And what is going to happen is that as the costs keep going up, it's going to expose people that are not really efficient in operational, in terms of operational efficiency for the shortlets, right? So if the costs keep going up as it has gone, the price of property will go up in some cases, and the people that know how to manage property very efficiently will do a good job with managing the properties, and the people that don't know how to do a good job will be the ones complaining and say, oh, the market is bad, people are not booking. But guess what? Other people are doing about 70% occupancy rates, some other people are doing about 80% occupancy rates. So it's a different ballgame for everybody. You have to just find what works for you and find a way to ensure that you're operationally efficient.
Now, rising cost is one thing, taxation is another. And you know quite well that the government is really particular about it this year. How are you guys managing that, Samuel?
Okay. So I believe that tax is, first off, not new to the economy, right? Every business at some point, when you're growing, you need to be tax compliant. And I would say for a fact that the real estate industry is no exempt, especially if you operate in the hospitality sector. Although, because we do real estate, there are certain arms of a business that is tax exempt, right? So activities around real estate development right now is tax exempt. And the reason is because, the government is trying to also do their part in ensure that, they encourage people to do real estate, because real estate, contributes, is the third largest contributor to the economy, real estate construction and everything around it. And for tax specifically, there are certain areas of a business that is usually not tax exempt. So there are, allied services that are, around what you do, like legal services, commissions, a couple of things that are not tax exempt, which you still have to, comply. But one thing I can say for a fact is, the tax regime right now, has made it slightly easier, right? And if you're operating, property, above a bracket or, above a certain technicality, so that's when you need to be tax, compliant. That's when you need to pay tax. But for a lot of our services right now, if you're in development, it is tax exempt. But I know for a fact that, services around hospitality, what you charge for shortlets is usually, taxed, right? Which, also has a way of increasing, of course, the price of the shortlets over time. So if we have a lot of shortlet operators that have not been accounting for tax, right? So what that means is, if you're going to look at, what VAT says, 7.5%, right? Do you want to absorb, the 7.5% in VAT, with your current price, or do you want to, charge it and then, or pass it on to the customers, which in quotes will also increase the price of the shortlets? And we are talking about, growing global prices, right?
That's true. Anyway, so Temidayo, would you say for an average investor who is watching right now, shortlets are still really lucrative? Okay,
so the market is dynamic. Right, so I would give an analogy, right? Say when you invest in the stock market, you want to generally not say the stock market on an average level is lucrative, right? When you look at different investment classes, it's lucrative. But you need to be very, very careful in terms of analyzing these investment classes, specifically in the real estate sector, right? So when you say the shortlet market, it has done well, averagely it's doing well. Generally, when you're looking at occupancy for Lekki and Ikeja GRA is doing about 60% averagely in 1 year, right? When you look at revenue growth, we see Yaba doing the highest revenue growth. It did about 2 billion last year. So 2 years ago, 2 billion, and last year it did about 4 billion. So that's about 100% capital appreciation, right? In terms of the revenue that the market generally did, right? So the point is, when you are investing in the shortlet market, you really want to be very strategic and look at these things very, very carefully. And that's why on our own end, I've taken upon ourselves to ensure that we have put out as much as possible information as regards data for informed decision making for customers, right? So, but the point is that when you're investing in shortlet markets, you really have to be very, very intentional and look at the data, right? And be very careful and be sure of the kind of investment you're going into, right? Because still, like I said, when you look at apartment types that do well, studio apartments, 1 bed, do well, very well in places like Surulere and Yaba, because these are affordable markets. These are apartments that do well in a market where it thrives on high volume, and a lot of people want something very, very affordable, right? But if you come to somewhere like Lekki, 2-bedroom do better because people want space. People can afford to pay premium and it's a premium market. So you want to also be intentional about, oh, what am I looking at?
And doing your research.
And doing your research.
Thank you so much for your time, Temidayo and Samuel. It's been quite an interesting conversation, especially for those who may be interested in real estate, but particularly shortlets, which is all the rave right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
much. All right,
much.
at this point, we'll take a break. You're watching Wake Up Nigeria. Stay with us. We'll be right back.